The sky was pale with the first light of dawn. Cool air drifted through the quiet village nestled deep in the highlands, surrounded by the towering slopes of the Minshan Mountains. People were waking up, making breakfast, feeding chickens, and talking with neighbors. Life moved slowly and peacefully, just like it always had. No one had any warning. No one had a chance to prepare. Then it happened. A thunderous roar split the silence. The earth trembled, and without warning, a monstrous landslide came crashing down the mountainside. An avalanche of rock, trees, mud, and debris.
Yoga today looks...
It was fast, violent, unstoppable. The peaceful village was gone in seconds. Homes where generations had lived were flattened. Green fields vanished beneath thick, choking layers of earth. Roads that once connected this tight-knit community to the outside world disappeared. Everything familiar was lost in a wave of destruction. The mountains had finally given way after days of heavy rain. The soil had become saturated, too heavy to hold. Water had already filled the rivers to their limits. When the slope collapsed, it triggered more than just a landslide. It unleashed a disaster that would stretch far beyond the village. The debris blocked rivers, causing the water to rise, then rush backward with terrifying force. The sudden overflow triggered flash floods that surged through towns far downstream. Places like Mianyang and Guangyuan were hit without warning. Streets turned into rivers, homes filled with muddy water. Cars floated like paper boats, crashing into walls and trees. People ran through waist-high water, carrying children and clinging to anything that would float. In some areas, the floodwater rose so quickly, families had only minutes to escape. In others, it was already too late. In Pingwu, some villagers thought it was an earthquake as the ground shook beneath them. In Mianyang, the sound of crashing rocks and water was compared to a freight train. Loud, fast, and terrifying. And in Guangyuan, neighbors carried elderly residents on their backs, trying to reach higher ground. The destruction was total. Bridges crumbled, roads were buried or torn apart. Schools, hospitals, marketplaces, everything was underwater or destroyed.
家人们，我们龙江涨大水了，现在我们小区。
Electricity was cut off. Drinking water became contaminated. Communication with the outside world was nearly impossible. Entire communities were left in darkness, both literally and emotionally. Sirens echoed across the valleys as emergency crews scrambled to respond. But getting to the disaster zones was nearly impossible. Helicopters flew over damaged areas, dropping food and supplies. Soldiers, firefighters, and volunteers fought their way through thick mud and unstable ground to search for survivors. Many used only their bare hands to dig through rubble. Every life mattered. Makeshift shelters were set up in nearby towns. Tents replaced homes. School buildings turned into medical centers. Local doctors worked day and night treating wounds, broken bones, and severe hypothermia from hours spent in freezing floodwaters. And yet, even in the middle of such overwhelming loss, something remarkable began to happen. People didn't give up. In Pingwu, villagers who had lost everything began sharing whatever little food they had left. In Mianyang, complete strangers opened their homes to families who had nowhere else to go. In Guangyuan, local shops gave away clothes and medicine. Relief teams arrived from distant cities, bringing blankets, water, and hope. People who had never met before were now working side by side, helping one another stand again. Social media lit up with support. Volunteers arrived in trucks loaded with supplies. Donations poured in from across the country. The government issued evacuation alerts for high-risk areas and opened hundreds of emergency shelters. But the danger still isn't over. The rain may stop, but the ground remains unstable. More landslides could happen. Rivers are still swollen, and the weather forecast warns of more storms ahead. Some villages are still cut off. Rescue teams are stretched thin, and many survivors are still waiting, cold, hungry, and scared. But what this tragedy has revealed is something stronger than any storm. The unbreakable spirit of people who refuse to let disaster define them. This isn't just a story about a landslide or a flood. It's about the power of community, of courage, of kindness in the face of chaos. Even as nature showed its most destructive side, humanity showed its most beautiful one.